Welcome back, all you beautiful bulletproof handymen and women. Today's gonna be an interesting live stream. Y'all may find me to be, let's say, a little distracted, but I wanted to bring you in on the process, despite the fact that I may not be super entertaining while I'm doing it. But here's what we got going on. Recently, like last week, I didn't even notice it at the time that it happened, but last week, what appears to be, and I haven't done all my research yet. That's part of what I'm going to be doing sort of live, is a lot of my research and planning. So I'm not going to say it's the owner of one of the largest property management companies here in Tucson. He may not be the owner. I'm not sure. It looks like he is. But regardless, he's very high up the ladder, if not at the very top of the ladder for sort of the Tucson region for a very, very, very large real estate and property management company. Edward Pitkin, what's going on, sir? Good to see you. And there's Paul Dardo. All my guys always showing up. I love you guys. Thank you, Paul, for letting me know, by the way. Um, so he found my channel, or maybe Elia Morris. What's going on, man? Y'all are popping in here quick. That's awesome. Uh, I don't know if he found my channel or if one of his somebody below him found my channel, but I noticed there was a comment on one of my videos telling me to reach out to so and so here locally. And then a couple days later, I was getting into my email, and I've recently redone like a lot of stuff with my email, and I'm no longer getting alerts for one particular account, which is the account that's attached to the website for Bulletproof Handyman. So I didn't even see this email for days and days, maybe a week. But I found the email, and it was like, hey, you should reach out. Maybe we can help each other. Jacob Burns said, "What's up, Ray? Haven't caught a live in a while. I'm glad you're in here, sir." So, you know what? Let me turn some lights on so the camera will focus better. I didn't turn my lights on. We'll probably do this live stream for quite a while today, too, just because I've got a lot to do. It's a Friday. I've kind of set the day aside for a lot of this planning and for considering a lot of things. Oh, let's see. What do we got? Penny Grove Home Solutions said, "Watching on the road with my 5-year-old Eloise. She helped me on a materials run, expensive labor. She says hi. She loves your hat and beard." Cool. Tell her I said hi, Eloise. Well, she's listening, so hi, Eloise. I'm glad you're helping your dad. Yeah, so it looks like he's the owner. It doesn't really matter if he's the owner or not for this region. The point is, he's very high up the ladder. Turns out he had emailed me, so I copied his email address and emailed him from a different account that I'm definitely getting my alerts for because I don't want to miss any alerts. But there's a whole interesting backstory to this entire thing. I got a lot of talking to do. Y'all are going to have to do a lot of listening. But luckily, it's all handyman related. And since I know Eloise is in here for sure, I'm going to try to make sure I don't curse. I already try to not curse on this channel anyways. I'm putting real effort into moving that direction because there's so many people and oftentimes parents with children. So let me tell you the history about this company, and then I'll bring you back to present day and where we're looking to go in the future. They were not my first property management company, but my first property management company was a very, very tiny company, and it wasn't a lot of work for them. So the first property management company is what got me interested in property management, caused me to see the opportunity that was available with property management. So I started seeking property management companies to tailor my business towards them. Jamie said, "Good morning, Ray. This is GoCal Repairs from California. Thank you for your hard work on putting the interviews together for us." You're welcome. And there's definitely more coming. I've got a handful of people who have agreed. I'll be sending out some contracts to them. They're not like contracts, but I got to get a release from them to be able to use their image in our interview legally on the channel. But I'm putting that together too. I'm going to interview my son too. That's going to be very interesting. I think I'm proud of him right now. He's really kicking butt for quite a while now. So here's the history was, I decided to seek property management companies, and the first big one that I found is the one that I'm speaking of now that just reached out. So I started with them, and boy, did I hit the ground running. This company, I can't say they're the biggest in Tucson. I don't know if they're the biggest in Tucson, but again, doesn't really matter. They're gigantic. Their signs are everywhere. They do residential and commercial. They do property management as well as just sales. I've seen their signs up on new build sites, so I assume that they also do building, like they build for their clients, not just buy and sell. Um, and it was great. My business went from like me figuring things out to me just knocking out 3 to 5 jobs a day, just about every day of the week. They were the first company that put me in a position. There was a time, guys, where I had, and we're talking little jobs, we're talking one offs, leaky sink, smoke detector beeping, front door won't lock correctly, just all the little one off jobs, all the punch lists at the occupied properties. It got to the point where I was scheduling tight, like very tight. And I got to the point with them that I was booked out 3 weeks. And that doesn't sound like a long time to somebody who's doing like remodels and stuff. But when you're booked out 3 weeks, doing 3 to 5 jobs a day, that is insane. That's absolutely insane. Especially because, like let's say it's a leaky sink that may or may not be damaging a cabinet bottom, that can't wait 3 weeks. So the coordination that goes into this is where I learned how to schedule was because of this company. The coordination that you have to put together to have 3 to 5 jobs a day that you're knocking out and invoicing, and 3 to 5 new ones coming in that you're putting into your system. You're calling people, you're getting them on the schedule, you're reminding them that your trip is coming up, you're getting materials, you're knocking things out. You can't finish this one or that one because there's a specialty item you have to order. Dude, the let's use a George Bush word, the strategery that has to go into that was absolutely insane. And it really taught me a lot about how to actually run a successful handyman business that services property managers. So I was having a great time, man. I'm telling you, I had so much work that I just didn't even know what to do. And I didn't want to hire anybody because that wasn't why I started this business. So I just had to get really good at keeping everything together. Um, they paid well, like my prices were lower, of course. This is 4 years ago. So my prices, yes, were lower back then, but they were probably equivalent to my prices today for the most part, if you adjust for inflation, which is up like 25% from back then. Yeah, they paid well. They didn't complain about my pricing. Not that they never did. Sometimes they would ask a question or two and I might adjust something. That's just part of business. But they weren't trying to get me to be the cheapest handyman they've ever met. They were happy with me charging a very fair rate for high value work because I kept the tenants happy. I didn't get callbacks. I essentially, for the jobs that they sent me anyways, I took maintenance off. So fast forward a little while, like we're in a rhythm. They're typically putting in payments for jobs 5 to 10 days after. So I'd send an invoice, 3 to 5 invoices a day, or maybe I'd wait 3 days, send 3 days worth all on one day. But typically after I submitted an invoice, they would initiate the direct deposit payment within 5 to 10 days after that. So that created a nice cycle. There's nothing wrong with 5 to 10 days. That's definitely a reasonable amount of time for a net 30 company who doesn't have to pay you for 30 days. That's a reasonable amount of time for them to pay you in. So I was happy. I was building my business. And there came this point where I'm not going to mention him by name, but somebody who apparently no longer works for this company, who was he was beneath the person that contacted me, put it that way, but he was still very high. So he was like in charge, I think, of the rental aspect of their business in general. And a few things went down sort of all at the same time. Number one, there was this it wasn't an old crappy house. It wasn't necessarily like a slum, but it definitely wasn't like a mid 2000s spec home either. It was an older home, decent shape, but needed a lot of work. And I did a lot of work there. I submitted multiple estimates for multiple different jobs. I stayed busy on that house for a while. And then the owners wanted to sell it. So they needed fresh paint on the cabinets. But these cabinets were falling apart. The face frame was coming off. The countertops had soaked up a bunch of water and poofed out. The upper cabinets near the stove, actually all of the upper cabinets, even not near the stove, were soaked in oil and grease. And I mean soaked. And you can't just paint those. And you can't just use some soap and water and get the grease off and paint them. And you can't just use soap and water, get the grease off, and use an oil based primer and paint them. They needed major prep work. So they asked me for an estimate to paint the cabinets. I gave them an estimate. Clearly, it was a high estimate because it required a lot of labor. And they came back and said, so the guy that I'm speaking of, not the one who just contacted me recently, but the guy who was kind of in charge of all the rentals back then, had the girl that was like the coordinator contact me and say, "Hey, um, we just want you to put some paint on the cabinets. We don't want all that prep work done." And I said, "Well, I can't really do that because it's all the paint's gonna come off, like for sure. That would be a very unethical hack job, you know." And I'm not saying that when you're selling a house, clearly, like if you're living in your house and you want a new paint job, you might want the best paint. If you're selling a house and you're going to put a paint job on it, you don't have to use the best paint. There's nothing unethical about that. You want fresh looking walls, you make fresh looking walls. If the new owners want higher quality paint, they can make that happen. But that's not what this was. This was them asking me to do a job that is guaranteed to backfire on the new buyers. It's unethical work. And I just simply politely declined. I just said, "Look, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to put my name on work that I know to be bad work, like truly bad, unethical work that I shouldn't do. I can't do that. And I think I even dropped my price just a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit just to help. And they didn't say yes, but they also didn't go find somebody else to do it. They continued to ask. The phrase putting lipstick on a pig was used. They literally said, "Look, we just want you to put lipstick on the pig." And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't do that." So that's the first thing that happened. Or maybe it wasn't the first, but it was one of three things that happened over the course of a couple weeks. Another thing that happened was this large company was purchasing a smaller property management company. So when they were purchasing that smaller property management company, the company they were purchasing had a move out that needed to be completed before the sale could close. When you put these sales together in advance, the sale, everything is priced and set to close on a certain day, and everything has to be in a certain place, in a certain condition by that day. So one of the conditions was this move out needed to be completed before the sale. So this guy that owned the company they were buying, he contacted me because I was doing so much for them, and they recommended me, I assume. He contacted me, asked for an estimate on a move out. I gave him the estimate, and then he called me to go over my estimate, which I didn't mind. I can't do that all the time because, again, that's time, and time is money. I need to be billable when I'm working, and that's working. But he called me, we went over the estimate. This guy was a prior contractor, so he was, in fact, familiar with the industry. And we're going down the list, and he's looking at each individual task, and he's saying, this should take about 30 minutes to accomplish, and the material should cost about this much. And I'd mostly agree. Every now and then I disagreed. Every now and then I was like, the materials are a little more these days than what you remember, or yeah, that's going to take a little longer because of this and that. But for the most part, he was pretty accurate. By the end of the estimate, he put together how much time he figured I would need to get that work done. And he put together how much money would need to be spent in materials. And it was, pretty close enough, not spot on, but it was close enough. And he said, "Well, it looks to me then like you're trying to charge about $100 an hour." And I was like, "Yeah, that's about right." I mean, back then it was, let's say, 80 to $100 an hour. But this was a property manager I didn't know, and he wanted me to interrupt. Again, I'm booked out 3 weeks at a time with these guys, like 3 weeks out with no blank spots in there anywhere. I mean, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for the next 3 weeks. So he needs me to drop a lot of what I'm doing and go do him a favor to get this move out done. So I was closer to 100 than 80, but regardless, 100 is a perfectly reasonable price for a business to be charging for its billable labor hours doing skilled work. By skilled, I mean, some plumbing, some electrical. It's not like they just wanted me to go pick up the trash in the backyard and vacuum the floor. So I said, it looks like you're trying to make about $100 an hour. I just agreed with him. I was like, yeah, that's, not precisely, but basically, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And he said, well, I've got guys that'll do this for 35 an hour. And I was like, well, I'm booked out for the next 3 weeks. So if you've got guys, you should definitely use them, especially if they're cheaper than me. And he got all mad and he said, I'm going to call them and tell them that they need to drop you as a vendor. And I was like, I mean, do what you're going to do, sir. That's my price. And it wouldn't make sense for me to stop working on profitable work to take your job and make less money. That doesn't make any sense at all. So that's another thing that happened. And then another thing that happened was the guy that was in charge locally of the entire sort of rental division. He had the girl beneath him reach out to me on his behalf and to tell me that he was interested in discussing bringing my LLC in under their umbrella LLC, making my LLC a part of their LLC, and essentially putting me in charge of maintenance for all of the rental division. And that was at just the time that I had seen the potential in this industry previously, which is why I entered. But that was about the time where I was getting really good at scheduling, really good at knocking out the work. I did not yet have an inventory and I did not yet have processes for my job. So I was definitely way slower than I am today, but still so fast. And I knew that I needed an inventory. Like I understood that there were improvements that I was going to be making and therefore going to be becoming more profitable. So my reply back was, hey, I'm open to anything. That's not the direction I'm really looking to take my business, but I am always open to anything. But just FYI, I do understand what the potential is for me running this business the way I'm running it. I can see what the income potential is here, and that's what I'm going for. So if I were to agree, it wouldn't be for like $80,000 a year salary, even 80,000 plus bonuses. Again, because I see where this business can go. So if we were going to do something like that, I just want you to know that I'm not going to be super affordable, and this isn't really what I was looking to do, but I'm willing to have the conversation. So those three stories I just told you, I didn't get a response back, by the way, from my response. Instead, that it felt like that was a final straw where all of the sudden this company ghosted me. So I went from 3 to 5 jobs a day, 7 days a week, and I mean 30 days a month, not no days off ever. 7 days a week, sun up to sundown, knocking out their maintenance, putting money in the bank, getting excited about building my business, figuring out this new industry that I had just stepped into. And all of the sudden, nothing. They ghosted me. And when I say they ghosted me, I mean the people that I would speak to on the phone frequently back then, who would call me with all kinds of questions about, can you do this? Can you do that? Or I would call them and say, hey, I just wanted to check on this. I think we're going to need to spend this money to make that happen, get the approvals. Very good relationship. And then nothing. No replies. I'm sending text messages and I'm saying, like, hey, I haven't received any new jobs in 3 days. And nobody's replied back to me on any of this. Like, what's going on? Do I need to be looking for new property managers or something? Because it seems like y'all have just chosen to not even tell me that you're ghosting me. You're literally just ghosting me. Hold on a second. Hey, yeah, what's up? No, I don't need it done today. I just want it worked today so it can also get worked tomorrow or the next day so that it gets done as soon as possible so that that job that's been on the books for so long can get off of the books so that they send more work. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Yeah. All right. Sweet. Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. Well, I'm doing a live stream, so I'll let you go, but thank you for the update. All right. You too. Sorry about that, but the business comes first. That was my son. We had to talk a little business. He's just updating me on stuff. So where was it? Actually, let's go to some comments first. I remember where I was. They ghosted me. So Kevin Toohey said, "Question, please. Where are the shallow wells in Arizona under 300 feet that are not in the hottest part? There's nothing near Tucson under 300 feet. I'll tell you that. Um, Maybe near Mammoth, which is not too far from Tucson. Maybe near Mammoth because there is like kind of a dried up river down there. It's in a floodplain. But I mean, I feel like you got to go as far away as the White Mountains from Tucson. But yeah, I don't have too much knowledge for the state overall." John Catrambone said, "What's up, brother? Yeah, just telling a story, man. Sit down and listen to my story. It's pretty neat." All right, so they ghosted me. Uh, they wouldn't even tell me they ghosted me. It was just literal ghosting. They disappeared off the face of the earth. They did continue to make the payments for the I finished the jobs that I had from them. I kept working the jobs, I kept sending the invoices, the payments kept getting processed. But they didn't send new jobs. They didn't tell me what was going on. They didn't give me any rhyme or reason why. It was as if everyone had been ordered to just ghost me. In hindsight, at the time it was devastating. At the time it was devastating. It was scary. I had quit my job. I had identical twins on the way. It was really, really, really bad. But what I did, rather than give up, the first thing I did once I about 3 days in, when I went, okay, yeah, I'm definitely ghosted. So what I did was I went and figured out how to acquire new property managers, and I acquired them. I got two. One of them is probably close to one of the biggest property management companies in town. The other one's not too far behind them. Both good sized property management companies. I signed on with them and I started working, and they liked me. I had figured out while working for this other company sort of how this system works and what's expected and what they value. So I started providing that to my new clients. And then, I don't know, 2 months later, all of a sudden the old company, the big one, just suddenly started sending work orders to me. And I didn't do the work orders clearly because I'm not going to drop my new clients to go back to an old client that had just ghosted me, that had almost destroyed my business and sent me back to aviation. So I didn't go back to them. I don't even remember clearly what I said, if I said anything. I just didn't take the jobs. And I kept building my relationship with those other two clients, which to this day are my two main clients. But that whole situation, and by the way, I also got like five or six, smaller clients as well. Plus, I had one or two that were already existing on the side, just not enough, to keep me busy. So, what I learned from that situation, and that had a lot to do with the name of this channel being Bulletproof, because Bulletproof, number one, just so you guys know, the idea is not that I'm the Bulletproof Handyman. The channel name was about the Bulletproof Handyman business. Handyman just being a word to describe what kind of business. But it's about being a bulletproof business. And bulletproof, a lot of people keep saying there's no such thing as bulletproof. Well, yeah, there is. That's why we have the word. What those people are trying to say is that bulletproof doesn't mean immortal or indestructible, which I agree with. Bulletproof isn't supposed to mean that. I've been in the military. I was also a DoD contractor in Afghanistan for 3 years, and I'm an avid sportsman who loves shooting and anything related to weapons. So, at least for me in my mind, when I hear the word bulletproof, the first thing I think is how bulletproof. Like I've ordered my own bulletproof body armor. I've ordered thousands of dollars worth of body armor for Afghanistan. They let us sort of pick our own, the company I was working for. Things are bulletproof up to a certain number of hits by a certain caliber. You can have a 123 grain projectile traveling at 2,000 feet per second. That imparts a certain amount of energy. And when you purchase bulletproof gear, body armor, what you're purchasing is how bulletproof is it. So you can get things that won't stand up to 5.56, or you can get something that will, or you can get something that will stand up to 12 rounds of such and such caliber, or only up to 6 rounds. So for me, the idea of bulletproof was simply I needed to design my business and was in the process of designing my business in such a way that I could take hits and survive. Not an infinite number of hits, not going to survive, artillery hitting me in the chest, clearly. But the point is, bulletproof just meant I needed to create a business that could survive really big hits and still get injured, maybe slow down a little bit, but not die from it. So I didn't go back to them, right? I built my business to where I have it today, still with those two main clients. And those two main clients, keep my business full of work, as much work as I want. I don't want more work at the moment. Darren said, "Hey, been watching you for a while now. Started my handyman business here in Southeast Missouri, April 29th. Got a few jobs so far. I appreciate all of your advice and love your videos. Keep it up, bub." Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. So now we fast forward to today. And the guy I was telling you about, who appears to be at some sort of ownership level, if not the top guy within this region for that company, um, he reached out via email essentially and said something to the effect of, maybe we can help each other out. So I copied and pasted, emailed him back from a different account that I know I'm going to get my alerts from correctly, and just basically said, "Well, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to read the email. I mean, it's my email that I sent, not his that came to me, but still, I'm not going to go word for word." But basically, I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. We can talk." I told him the story I told you. I said, "Hey, just for a little background, just so you know, I worked with y'all before. In fact, I kind of started my business with y'all, and these three things happened." And I named for him the names of the people who were involved in those scenarios because I assume he's going to know who they are. Said these three things happened, and then I was ghosted. So just so you know, like, your company has chosen not to work with me in the past. Said, but, and actually, I told him because he found me via the channel. So I told him in the email, I said, in fact, the thing that went down between your company and mine was a big part of the motivation for me to create a bulletproof business and therefore end up naming the channel after that. Had that never happened to me, this wouldn't be the Bulletproof Handyman business channel. It would just be the Handyman business channel, which that name's already taken. So it would have been something else. So I told him all that and I said, but, the past is in the past. I'm in a different place now. My business is strong and successful on its own, to where if that happened again, I would survive it. And I know for a fact I would. I would just rejigger a few things and run the business a slightly different way to accommodate fewer workers and fewer jobs. Or I would go get new property managers. It wouldn't be a big deal. So the past is in the past, and if you want to have a phone call, I said, if you're just looking for another vendor, take some work off your hands, we can definitely accommodate that right away. And if you're looking for something bigger, like a vendor who can just sort of take all your maintenance off your hands, I would need a little bit of time to ramp up and pull together some guys, but I definitely have the ability to do that. And so long story short, we have an appointment set up for next week at a very specific time. I feel like this is a good sign because, well, let's just say, if this company, if they just want to add me as a vendor, fine. I think I'm still in their system. I get an email, like an automated email from them very infrequently, but I'm still in their system. So, like, if they just want to send a few jobs here and there, that's cool. We can handle a few more jobs. It's not a big deal. If they don't like something about the way we do business and they choose not to send any more jobs after a few, that's also okay because we're comfortable. If y'all watch me a lot, you know that I'm planning on expanding this business and almost kind of relaunching. My plan was to try to do it during the winter, during the slow season. When I have more time, I can take away from doing the actual work and running the business to put into sort of putting all the kits together, getting an employee, maybe getting a vehicle and all that. That was already the plan. Like, I wasn't looking to grow. So if I don't grow based on this meeting, perfectly fine. It just means I continue forward as I've already been planning to do, building up YouTube. I want to build that website to compete with Angie's List and Thumbtack and those guys. So I got plenty on my plate already. However, if he did want my company to maybe start doing something with his company in a much larger way. The type of thing where I would need to scale and scale quickly. I feel positive about that. That would be, it wasn't part of my plan, clearly, but I know this company very well because except for the whole ghosting thing right at the end, this is the kind of company you want to be attaching your handyman business to. They didn't complain about my pricing. I wasn't, now granted, I wasn't charging too much, but I wasn't cheap either, guys. I was charging what I consider to be a fair market value, less than a contractor would have charged, but definitely more than the average handyman would have charged. And they didn't complain. And they paid me well. And the work was steady. And they didn't just put me on certain types of jobs that are harder to profit from. They sent me the nice, quick, easy, leaky sinks and smoke detectors at the same time that they sent me some of the more difficult, harder to profit jobs. So it was a great relationship, and I assume that this company, although things change over time, I have no reason to think that they run their company any differently today than they did then. So they would be a great client. The challenge on my end would then be, let's say they do want me to become like one of their main vendors or their main vendor or an exclusive vendor. The question then becomes, well, what does that look like? How much work is that? And does that mean that you want me doing occupied properties, little tiny punch lists, as well as move outs, as well as onboarding new properties that are going to need a lot of work to come up to their standards, as well as remodeling, putting in new cabinets and stuff. There are a lot of things that I would need to put in place in order to make something like that happen, depending on where on that scale they would like to try to get to and how fast they try to get there. And here's what's great, guys, is I don't know when the cutoff would be where prior to that cutoff, I would not have necessarily been capable of ramping up and putting that together quickly. But there is a moment when I became capable of that. And it's kind of beautiful because we just interviewed Ian Gonzalez on this channel, and Ian told a story. And I have time, and y'all are likely just mostly listening. So I'm going to go over Ian's story real quick. By the way, Ian, thank you for the story. I'm going to steal it and I'm going to change it. It's going to have the same idea. I'm going to tell it your way now, but I have some ideas for ways that I think that story could be better. So let me know if you made it up. If that's your story, I'll ask permission. But if that's a story somebody else told you, I'm going to take that tradition and continue. And the story goes something like this. There's this young man walking along a beach, and he comes across an older man with an 80-foot tall, I keep wanting to call it sugar cane because that's what I think of when I think of bamboo because I grew up around sugar cane. 80-foot tall bamboo tree, right? This big around, just 80 feet tall. And the kid's impressed and he wants to grow one. And he asks the old man, like, how can I grow this kind of tree? How did you do this? And the old man gives him a little seedling and says, here's what you do. I'm going to tell you exactly how to grow one of these. You take this seedling home, you plant it in the ground, and you fertilize and you water it every day. No matter what happens. No matter what happens. You just keep fertilizing and watering this seedling, and eventually you will have this tree. So the guy takes it home, does exactly what he's told. He plants it, he waters it, he fertilizes it every single day. 3 months go by, it's still this tall. 6 months go by, it's still this tall. 9 months go by, same stupid little seedling. And then about a year later, finally, he walks outside one day, and this seedling has shot up and become an 80-foot tall bamboo tree just overnight. So he goes back to the old man and he asks the old man, what happened? I don't understand. I went a year fertilizing and watering and nothing, and then all of a sudden in one day it just shoots straight up. What's the deal? What was it doing for that year? And the old man explained to him, for that year, that seedling was putting in roots. You couldn't see it. What you saw was the top, and the top didn't look any different. But that entire year, it was putting roots into the ground. And the way Ian describes this story is the way it relates to our industry is, every little thing you do that's positive, whether it be learning, whether it be creating connections with people and just sort of networking across your industry in general, tweaking the way you do your business, experimenting with new methods, materials, procedures, etc., upgrading your vehicle, upgrading your tools. It doesn't matter. All the things you do that are good, positive things to do for your business, and especially the ones that are above and beyond, the things you're doing that other people are not doing, where you're investing your time and resources into your business, running it like a very solid, very professional business, having the insurance, building a website, all of those little things. Those are all little roots that that little seedling is putting out, and it's putting them out everywhere. And you may not see any change above the surface. I felt forever and ever like there was no light at the end of the tunnel for me. I started off thinking there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and I didn't know Ian's analogy, but I kept putting all my roots in. I kept pounding the pavement. I kept working hard. I kept making plans, executing the plans, and it felt like everything was working, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was still stuck working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, endlessly for years. And then it was last Thanksgiving when I went to Texas and came back, something changed where just lots and lots of what I had put in for years finally started paying off. And I went from no time off, no time with my family, no time for anything other than work, to suddenly having some time. Even this YouTube channel was a route that I was putting in that brings in some amount of revenue. And yes, I have to use that revenue for the channel. I have to use it to forego some handyman work to hire that out, whether it be to my son or someone else. I have to invest that money into the business to take the time from the business to do the YouTube. But the point is, I've been putting roots in. So, where are we at now? So, listen to that story. It's all about putting those roots in forever. And then when the right opportunity shows up, you have a root structure that can withstand the storm. So, you can shoot up 80 feet and withstand the storm that is about to hit. If this guy wants me to be just another vendor, that's great. I always welcome a little bit more work, even a lot more work. I can hire one extra guy or I can sub out a few extra things. That's not a big deal. I can even work a little more myself. If he wants something more than that, what's great is I've been doing this for 4 years now, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but it's not the same. It's not like saying I've been working at J.C. Penney's behind the watch counter for the men's watches. I haven't been doing that for 4 years. I've been running and building a business and figuring out an industry for 4 years. I've been making connections with local handymen and local painters and local welders and local roofers and local landscapers and all of that network of people that I may need to pull from for 4 years. I've been learning this industry. I've been building processes. I've been acquiring and building inventory. I've been building kits. I've been studying how to run a business correctly. I've been studying my clients, which are all the same clients. They're all property managers. I don't touch homeowners for 4 years. I've been building a massive root system for the last 4 years. And it's just so neat because, again, if he doesn't want anything from me, perfectly fine. My business is already solid. I already have my plans in place. I'm already executing those plans, and things are going according to plan. I'm in a very happy place. I take my babies outside to the backyard every single morning now before I get started working. Whereas I used to wake up at 5 and leave the house at 6 and not come home till 6 and never see my family. I spend time with my babies every morning, and then I shut down in the evening and I do the exact same thing. We got a fire pit going now. My life is good and I'm grateful and I'm happy. So if nothing changes, that's fine. But this could be a very nice opportunity for my family and for the future of my business. And I'm suddenly in a position where I don't have to ask myself, am I capable? If he does want somebody to step in a very large way and kind of take maintenance off of their plate, at least mostly? The answer is yeah, I can. I can. I have all the people in place. I know the people, I have the networks. I may not have the capital, depending on, but don't get me wrong, he's a business owner. He built a very large business here in Tucson that is very successful. He's a business person. He's not going to come to a one or two man show with a few subcontractors and say, "I need you to take everything over tomorrow." That's not on the table. So I don't really need to worry about that. But wherever it is he would like to get to, I can confidently look him in the eyes if and when we have a sit down meeting and say, "Yeah, I can do that for you. I actually I can. I can say that while looking him in the eyes with confidence, because the truth is I can now because I put the time in. I actually can do that. So regardless of how this meeting goes, doesn't really matter. I'm going to be okay either way. But there is now a at least a possibility of a nice big opportunity for my business to take advantage of all those roots we've been putting in and to actually do some growth, to go ahead and come from this level to this level, you know? And one of the things that'll be required, I'll clearly need a contractor's license. I don't have one yet. They're not hard to get. It's a series like everything else. Like I tell y'all with building your own handyman business. It's not hard. It's a series of steps. I have a master class. Y'all can click on the link in the description. It's a free master class that will take you step by step. And I mean literally, you watch lesson one, do what it says, watch lesson two, do what it says, watch lesson three, do what it says in the order it says to do it in. And if you get to the end, you're a business owner with clients. It's not hard to do. It's a series of steps. I watched a video this morning. I like to scroll on my phone for 20 or 30 minutes while my body wakes up. And I was watching this video, and it was a guy, somebody asked him, "What was the biggest lie you were ever told?" And he said, "Well, it's not that easy." And the interviewer said, "Why not?" And he's like, "No, no, no. That's the biggest lie I was ever told, is that it's not that easy." And she said, "Well, what's the truth then?" And he said, "It is. It is that easy. Everybody tells you it's not that easy. They want you to quit. They want you to give up. They don't want you to compete. They don't want you to get ahead of them. They want to stay where they're at, and they want to keep you where they're at. So everybody tells you it's not that easy. Does it for our purposes? It's like plumbing, electrical, roofing, carpentry, tile work, all of these things. They want us to believe that it's not that easy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that just any Joe off the street without any effort can just start a tiling business and start tiling. There are a series of steps that you do need to take to get there, but they're not hard steps to take. What makes something hard is not the physical labor involved. That doesn't make something hard, really. I mean, if you're a grown man, you should be comfortable with using your body and committing it to physical labor. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good for you. So then the only question is really, is for something to be easy or hard, it's just, is it easy or hard to figure out what the steps are? Taking the steps is not hard. It's, is it easy to figure out what the steps are to get there? And these days, with the internet, with YouTube, with libraries, with AI, all the information that exists in this world, every bit of human knowledge is at your fingertips on your phone and on your computer. So there's really no excuse for saying something is not that easy or can't be done. If you want to know everything there is to know about quantum physics, you can go and watch every MIT lecture that the smartest people in the world attend and learn from. And you can also learn everything there is to know that's publicly available to know about quantum physics and quantum mechanics. So that's the point, is it's actually not hard. You just have to make the decision to do it. So where am I at? I don't want to grow my business yet. That wasn't my goal. Hold on. This is right. Yeah, how you doing? Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. Is this like an emergency call you wanted me to do, or you just want to know if you can send me the work order? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no worries. And for future reference, I mean, there may be one or two little things that we don't do, but feel free to send me all of the work you want to send anytime you want to send it. And on the rare occasion that it may end up being something we don't currently offer, we'll either do our research and purchase the necessary tools and take care of it, or we'll just let you know that that's not something we do. But I mean, we do basically everything. So you just feel free anytime you want to email me or text me, either one, any job that you need to send us, and we'll get it scheduled and knocked out. Yes, ma'am. I'm right in the middle of something. Is this a good number to call you back at? Okay, great. Yeah, just text me and then I'll send you all the information you need. And then you can go ahead and send me all of your information, like your email address and whatnot, assuming you want me to send the invoices to you. Okay. Okay, perfect. That's great. Yeah, shoot me a text, and as soon as I wrap up what I'm in the middle of doing right now, I'll go ahead and get that sent over to you, and we'll get you in my system. And then you can just send me, like I said, any work order you want to send. It's going to be pretty rare that you're going to ask us to do something we don't already. Oh, cool. Well, I'm your guy. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. One of my companies got a new assistant, I guess. They're growing, so they needed to hire somebody to sort of handle more administrative stuff, which would include sending out work orders. And she because she called and asked, she's like, "Can I have a garbage disposal that's not working, so the sink's not draining well. Can I send that to you?" And I'm like, that's a normal, to me, that's like, of course, clearly, obviously, we'll do garbage disposals. So, well, you heard the conversation. So I let her know, you need to send us anything at all, ever, via any means of communication you want to use. You send us all the work you want. We'll take care of you. So now I may have a little trouble remembering exactly where I left off. The short story is possible new client, and specifically that this possible new client is the type of property management company that would be very good for my company to work with. So the upsides are all the upsides I already told you. They pay well, et cetera, et cetera. They pay well, they pay on time, they're large, they want a professional. I don't want a company that wants a cheap guy at $35 an hour trying to like make it happen. You know what I mean? I don't want to work for a company who wants that, because I'm not going to be able to provide them with that. I want a company that's looking for the product that I sell. And the product I sell is being a professional and reliable property maintenance company that will just take maintenance off their plate. And I do believe that's what they want. So it's going to be good if we get hooked up together. Oh, I was talking about the growth. Yeah. So that's where we're at. Is anybody watching, if you're watching, listening right now, if you're in the Tucson area, I'm going to start preparing today to be able to take on that workload. If in fact, like, they may have a handful of guys that are just really dropping the ball. They may have taken maintenance in house and are wanting to disband the in house maintenance. That rarely works out well. You never know. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start getting prepared for that. I'm going to reach out to basically everybody that I have used locally that did a good job for me that I want to use again. I'm going to reach out to all of them and just sort of catch up with them, see where they're at with their business, find out if they're interested in maybe taking on a lot of extra work really soon, and maybe doing that almost full time for me. They can still have their own thing going on, as long as my jobs don't take second priority. I'm going to look at my finances. I don't, if they wanted to dump, let's say, 10 jobs a day onto me, day after day, that I need to get all assigned out to everybody and I need to purchase all the materials, I don't have the funding for that, unless they want to make some agreement that while we're ramping up, they try to pay everything within 72 hours, because then I can recycle that through really quickly and ramp up even faster. So I'm going to have to analyze that. I'm going to have to take a look at, of the guys who are available and interested, I'm going to have to look at what each of their skill sets are, so I can figure out what skill sets I'm lacking, so that I can find some guys that can fill in those blanks for me. Because what I don't want to do, if and when I talk to this guy and he wants to do something bigger, I'm going to tell him yes. I'm going to tell him I can, and I'm not gonna pitch myself to him. I'm not gonna lie to him. I'm gonna tell him I can because I can, and I'm not gonna beg for the work either, I'm just going to let them know, yes, if you want somebody who can handle this, yes, I can handle it. But if I'm going to say that, it needs to be true. So I'm going to make sure before that meeting ever happens that I do have all of the different skill sets lined up and ready to go. So there's that. What else was I going to get onto about that whole? There was more I had to say about it. Oh, something interesting. Something I do like is, this guy reached out, commented on, I don't even, again, I don't know if it was him that commented on the video. I don't know if the person who commented on the video is the same person who sent me the email. They could be like an employee that saw the video and told the boss, and then the boss emailed. I don't know. But I have to assume it would make perfect sense to me that if I've put hundreds of videos online about how I run my business, he probably has watched them, enough of them to have a grasp of what it is I'm trying to do. And I'm not ashamed of anything that I do on this channel. I'm truly not. I'm very clear and very upfront, very honest about how I run my business. Sometimes that can come across as cocky, like when I'm telling people to charge more, or when I say, yeah, I really don't want to do this job. The company doesn't want to do it correctly, and they're asking me to hack it. And I'm just going to give them the estimate for a good price that I need to get paid to make this happen, and I'm okay with it going to somebody else. I assume that he has access to see me talking sincerely about what my business is and how I run my business. So I have to assume going into this meeting that if the meeting occurs, that he's down with what it is that I'm doing, which is great. Because again, I don't want to work for somebody who's looking for a different product or service than what I'm selling. I'm not looking to change my business. I may grow my business and I may add to my business, but I'm not looking to make it a different kind of business. Contractor's license. That's now high up on my priority list because I realize now, in hindsight, now that he has contacted me, honestly, I should have had it by now. I've been saying it for a year that I should have had it. It's not hard to get. There are different levels. There's a license that'll cap me at 5,000, which would likely cover 99% of what this company would ever want me to do for them, at least in the near term, in the first few years, right? Should cover 99% of those things under 5,000. There's another one that'll cap me. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 50 or 60,000. It's the one I really want, honestly. That one is not as easy to get, but I am fully qualified to get it. And it's still just a matter of passing some tests. It's just one of the tests that I'll have to pass. The book for it's up here on my shelf on the top, and it's going to mean I have to sit down and study a lot. And I don't mind studying. I don't mind learning. What I do mind is taking time away from the business itself. Like, yes, this would be for the business, but it's hard for me to take time from actually getting the work done and keeping this YouTube channel running because I'm not letting YouTube go. I'm just not. This is what I do now. The two are integrated. My handyman business and my YouTube channel about my handyman business have become an intertwined unit. It's one package that I do day in and day out, and each of them benefit each other and each of them feed off of each other. It's more than additive. It's not this plus this. It's not 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 with a handyman business and the channel. 2 plus 2 equals like 10 with what I'm doing right now. I realize now I should have just at the very least gotten the smaller, easier license already. It's kind of silly that I haven't. So way up near the top of my priority list now, it's going to be getting that license. Part of that process, I'm gonna make content on it so y'all can watch me go through the process of getting the license, which may give you more confidence that, again, like I said before, nothing, it is, it is that simple. It is. To get your license, there are a series of steps that you take. And they're public steps. They're not hidden steps. You don't have to purchase the information for the steps. You don't have to go to a guru in South America to find out what the steps are. You type it into Google and you just find out, and it literally tells you what to do next. The hardest part is passing the test. The book is kind of a complex book. I know probably get a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's easy." Well, yeah, it's easy for you and it's easy for a lot of people. It may or may not be easy for me, but it's not easy for everybody to use a book that's put together in a very different way from most books to find the answers. But I mean, it's an open book test too, right? So, worst case scenario, take the test and fail. Take the test and fail again. Take the test and pass. I don't think that's going to happen with me. I think I'm going to take it and pass the first time because I'm going to look into it. That's the first step. Research. The first step is I can Google the test itself and find a study guide for it. One of the guys from this channel that has done work for me in the past that I will be reaching out to soon, one of those guys sent me a link to like a flashcard app on your phone that you use to take the test. He used the app, he took the test here in Arizona, right here in Tucson. He passed the test. Everything is a series of steps. I feel like that's one of the biggest things with this channel that I try to get across is this is all doable. All of it very doable by anybody who chooses to simply number one, figure out what the steps are, and number two, take the next step. You don't have to take all the steps today. You just have to take the first step, which is figuring out what the steps are going to be. Once you know what they're going to be, the next step is just to take the next step. Don't worry about the step after that. Just take the next step. So that's what I'll be doing now. But it feels really good to know that, yeah, I should have gotten my license sooner. I could have and should have done a lot of things, but the truth is, I have put my roots down. I am capable of managing this if they choose to ask me to manage it. And I really don't see any reason why, let's say I take over, don't even call it takeover. Let's say I become their main vendor for all of their occupied properties and all of their move outs. Let's say I do that. That's a huge task in and of itself, but I can easily do that. That's not even hard. Let's say they then come to me and say, "Hey, we would like you to be doing most of these remodels. We've got a lot of houses, like a dozen a year or two or three dozen a year that we go ahead and update the kitchen, we put new cabinets in, new carpet, new this, new that." Let's say they come and say, "Hey, can you put together something to take care of that for us because we're not happy with the people we have doing it now?" The answer is yeah, I can. I can't do all of that tomorrow, but I can become their main guy tomorrow. I have the network already. If they sent 10 jobs today and 10 jobs tomorrow and 10 jobs the next day, I'd be really busy for a while. Don't get me wrong. Y'all may not see me for a week or two while I ramp, but I'd be right back and I'd have a system in place getting that knocked out because I know what I'm doing. But then if they said, "Hey, we want you to take over a lot of these remodels." Yeah, man, like I know how to find guys. I know how to vet guys. I know what they should or shouldn't be getting paid. I know the percentages. I'm very aware of the system that would need to be in place to make all of that happen. I'm good at managing people. I'm good at creating systems and managing systems and tweaking systems. It's a thing I could handle. And if I can figure that out for them, let's say a year later, maybe I'm big enough that I go, "Okay, yeah, no, the money's rolling in. I've got the money, I've got the crews, I've got everything going on, I've got more people wanting to work for me. I can go to another property management company and offer the same kind of service to them." It's very neat. It's very neat. Patrick Trotter said Virginia is a test. Fees. Virginia is a test, fees, and a sign off from another contractor to verify that they can vouch for you over 2 years. If you don't have a license, you are capped at $1,000, which is labor and materials. Very similar here. Very similar here. It's a test, it's fees. You don't have to have a sign off from another contractor. You have to give them whatever evidence it is you want to give them, or even just make the claim, honestly, that you have certain experience. And then they may or may not follow up on some of that, but they don't require an actual sign off from another contractor. But if you don't have that, same here, $1,000 is the limit, includes labor and materials, which is easy to build a business on. Let me tell you, easy, easy, easy. If you do those little jobs at $125 trip fees and you do 3 to 5 of them a day, every single day, do the math, guys. Super easy, very doable. If he's interested, I'm probably going to grow. And if he's not interested, that's perfectly fine. I already have a plan in place. I always do, and I always have, by the way. Always know what your plan is and where you're going. If you stand still in this industry, you'll die. You may get to pay your bills, for another decade or whatever. But if you stand still in this industry, you will just die. So that's that. Let's talk about some things that I want to talk to this owner about. Because there's a lot of things with this business I've wanted to do. And one of the problems I've had trying to make them happen has been the fact that of my two main clients, where the majority of my revenue comes from, one of those two main clients is really cheap, really cheap. They're just cheap. They don't want to pay anything for anything. They're willing to. They're happy with my services. They keep sending me work. They are paying me. But like they're not interested in anything else and anything new. They're always trying to figure out how to get things down further, how to make it more compact, more affordable, have fewer things happening at any given point in time. They're not an option for me pitching new things. However, my other client, although they're not cheap, we've had some back and forth on some prices here and there, but they're not cheap. They value what I do, but they're very small. How do I phrase this? They're a smaller company. They're large, right? But they're smaller than the other. They're a smaller, tighter knit company that run their company in a very different way from the cheap ones. Very, very different manner. But they're a smaller company, and the property managers themselves not only are very involved in most of the details of what's going on with their properties at all times, not only are they very involved, they want to be very involved. It's almost like a cultural. They don't want to be separated from the maintenance process and focus on other things. They want to really have their fingers in there and be fully attuned to all of the maintenance. Which, not like details, like not what ceiling fan are you putting up. It's just they want to walk the property themselves. They want to inspect it themselves. They want to make the calls on lots of things themselves. And then they're just happy for me to take it over once they've accomplished that, to actually do the work and invoice. So one of the things I'm going to be offering, and I'll let you guys know how this goes. Not just how it goes in terms of if he says yes or no, but also how I felt about talking to him about it and how he seemed to feel about it. So what I want to do, I've wanted to do this for a while, and I've sort of done this a little bit for like some of my smaller ones, but this has never been instituted in my business as a main way of doing business. And here's what I want to do. Let's start with, what problem is it that needs to be solved? The biggest problem, it's kind of a twofold problem. It affects multiple people in negative ways. But the biggest problem is that property managers, I'll let them come through first. What are you doing? Did you get a bath already? And now you're gonna go get dirty? Oh, don't let all the puppies in. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hey, get out!
Yeah.
Get out!
Property managers, and this is not across the board. Some property managers have been doing this a very long time and have gotten really good at it. Some property managers have been doing this a long time and haven't gotten good at it. But most property managers just simply haven't been doing this a long time. This being a property manager. This pattern that I see everywhere is these homes that have been entrusted to the property managers. These homes are not inspected thoroughly and frequently, and they are not maintained very well. And what I mean by that is, if I put myself in the homeowner's shoes, because I see all the properties, right? All of them. I'm the move out guy. I'm known with both of my clients for being definitely the guy that you send him a move out, large or small, it's going to get done. It's going to get done right. It's going to get done on time. It's going to get done for a reasonable amount of money. You can send me the move out and forget about it and know that you're going to have that invoice before you need it so that you can reconcile the deposit and move on and rent this place out again. So I do a lot of these. I'm very familiar with what needs to be done, what tends to get done. But what I see is, if I owned these homes and I entrusted my property manager that I hired to maintain this home, to rent it out and take care of that investment, I rarely meaning 95 times and 95 properties out of 100, if they were mine and I found out the condition that they were truly in. If I found out how little they were being inspected and maintained and how little information I had been kept up to date on about them, I would be angry. I really would. And I've seen it happen a few times where somebody either wants to sell their property or they want to move back into the property themselves, or they're going to start renting it to their niece and they don't need it managed anymore. But when the owner wants to remove the property from the property management company for good reasons, not because they're mad. When they decide they want to remove that property and they finally go look at their property, they're usually livid, usually angry because these properties didn't get taken care of. You turn your property over in a certain condition, right? And yes, the property is going to age. So for example, you turn the property over with a 5-year-old roof. Well, yes, 10 years later, it's now a 15-year-old roof. There's no periodic maintenance to be done on a roof other than, mending it if something breaks. If it gets a gouge in it, you've got to patch it, right? But what I'm talking about is like the exterior paint will be so faded that it's now soaking up water into the structure instead of repelling water from the structure. And at the bottom of the structure, it's almost completely flaked off and horribly stained all the way around. And you realize somebody should have told me 5 years ago when the paint was starting to enter this condition. Somebody should have told me 5 years ago, hey, you need a new paint job. And 5 years ago, I could have paid, let's call it two to 3 grand for a basic exterior paint job that doesn't require tons of repairs, that doesn't require tons of prep work, that doesn't require scraping a lot of flaking paint off, redoing a bunch of stucco, filling a bunch of cracks in the fascia. I could have got this done affordably 5 years ago if somebody had said to me, hey, your property, and the person I hired, right, the property manager should have, I think anyways, they should have noticed this and let me know. That's why I hired them to manage my investment. They should have let me know 5 years ago. I could have spent 2 grand. Now I need to spend 4.5 grand because it still needs a paint job, but now it's been damaged. So now I have to pay twice as much for the fascia because somebody's got to go around and replace a bunch of pieces that started rotting, and they've got to fill a whole bunch of cracks, and they've got to scrape all of the old stuff off that wasn't flaking 5 years ago. It's flaking now because it went 5 years needing paint that it didn't get. And then multiply that times everything around the entire house. Everything is in worse condition than when I turned it over. And again, I don't mean normal aging, normal wear and tear. I mean, it's in worse condition because somebody wasn't inspecting properly and keeping up with it. And right along with that, so we're talking big overall property, but let's drop it down and just go move out to move out, tenant to tenant. I can't tell you the number of times I have property managers send me a move out work order and it says, replace three missing door stoppers. And then I go through the house and there's 8 missing door stoppers. So this property manager, rather than having a good checklist, rather than taking their time, rather than really truly knowing their job and trying to do it to the best of their ability, instead, they get cocky and confident. They think they know what they're doing. And their version of a move out inspection is just them walking through the house, writing down whatever it is they see that needs to get fixed. They're not checking the temperature of the water coming out of the faucet to make sure that it's not, there's a limit that water should be. I don't recall the temperature right now, but there's a limit that it shouldn't go over. They're not checking the temperature in the fridge for food safety or in the freezer. They're not turning on every burner to the stove to make sure that every burner not only works, but that the little click, click, click automatic igniter actually works as well. They're not checking the light inside the oven. They're not even checking every door stop. They know that they need door stops because they noticed on 3 doors that it was missing a door stop, and then they just didn't notice the other ones. Why? Because they weren't treating their job like a true responsibility that they have towards someone's property. And many of them are always going to find the same things. It's things that they have stuck in their head, and they're going to find those things every time. And then there's things they will never notice. They just never, ever, ever notice these things that also need to be fixed. And then the next property manager is the exact opposite. They never find these things and they always find those things. But my point being, property managers are not experts at managing the investment of a home. They're really good at getting the place rented out. They're good at paperwork. They're good, hopefully good at, even managing vendors and making sure the work orders get sent out, get invoiced, and get paid. But they're not experts at properties. They're not property inspectors. And that's where I come in. So one of the services I want to offer is when a move out happens, typically the property manager goes to the property. There are tons of exceptions. I know a lot of handymen who are just given a budget and they just show up and do whatever they want to do within the. That's not normal though. So typically your property manager is going to inspect the property. They're going to send you a work order for all the work that needs to be done. If they're doing their job right, they're going to send you two work orders. One for the owner responsibilities, one for the tenant responsibilities. The service I want to offer is this. I want to inspect the property myself extremely, extremely thoroughly. I want to solve this problem of homeowners being upset that the property they gave you 10 years ago is being returned back to you unmaintained and more expensive to fix now than it would have been had we fixed it along the way correctly. Move outs are the time to do that. Vacant properties, when it's vacant, that's the time to really dig in and do the inspection. That's also the time to get all of that big work done. That's also the time to document with all the furniture and stuff removed after it's been cleaned and fixed, to document the current condition of this property before the next tenant takes ownership of it. Because when that next tenant takes ownership of it, if I only replace 3 door stoppers instead of the 8 that needed to be replaced, a year later, this tenant moves out. If they didn't notice the other missing door stoppers and document it, now they're going to be charged for 8 door stoppers if the property manager notices next year that it needs 8, or it would be 5 if I did 3, but it needed 8. Now you're charging tenants for things that aren't their fault, and they know that those things aren't their fault, and they feel scammed, and then they go and they leave bad reviews for your company online, and people pay attention to reviews big time. So I want to solve that problem, and the way I want to solve it is for me to inspect, or my company rather, to inspect the property. Initially me, while I train somebody up, but once they're trained, have an employee who does that inspecting for us, who uses, guys, if you haven't downloaded my checklist, you should. You go to the description of any of my videos, go to the bottom where it says you can download my free documents, click through there, get my inspection checklist. It's giant. It's thorough. There are things I need to add to it. I've thought of a handful of things over the last 6 months since I made it where I've gone, yeah, I should add that and I should add that. Like it could always use a little more, but it is the most thorough checklist you will ever find for inspecting these properties. I want to do that inspection for them. I want to offer the service of I will inspect the entire property, top to bottom, inside and out, in depth. I want to give you the fullest understanding of the condition of your property that's possible to give you. And I want to give that to you at every move out. Here's the issue though. The homeowner hired the property manager to do that already. The homeowner doesn't want to pay the property manager to maintain and inspect and manage their property and then get an invoice from me for doing a job that they hired the property manager to do. So these property managers, they can't have a homeowner going, hey, I paid you to do this. Why you're just hiring somebody else? Why don't I just hire the somebody else and cut you out of the loop, right? So how can I solve that problem for the property manager? Because that's what we do. Look at the logo on the thumbnail. We fix problems. Bulletproof Handyman business. We fix problems. We're not fixing toilets. We're not fixing light fixtures. We're fixing problems for people. So the problem that we're going to fix is the problem of, if I'm the property manager, my problem is I'm not an expert at inspecting properties. I don't really truly know what I'm doing. I would rather somebody else do it, but I can't pay somebody else to do it out of my own pocket. And I can't use the homeowner's money to pay somebody else to do it because they're going to get mad and say, that's what I'm paying you for. And they'd be right. So here's how I solve your problem. When somebody moves out, you send me, you, the property manager, send my company something that I haven't quite named yet, but it's along the lines of a safety and security work order. And the idea being, okay, somebody moved out. Now the property's vacant. That's dangerous. You don't want properties being vacant. Leaks can get sprung and they can flood and nobody's there to notice. If somebody notices, it's not always too expensive. Costs you a couple grand to get the carpet all dried out, hopefully not need to replace any drywall. But if nobody's there, you flood the house. If nobody's there, things can catch on fire. If nobody's there and the AC is set to 60 degrees, you're spending the homeowner's money for the electric bill to cool a house that could be set at 80 degrees or 76 degrees or something more reasonable. There's the windows. Are they all locked? I can tell you this, every rental I've ever gone into, if I've inspected the windows, there's at least one that isn't locked and that won't lock. So you need somebody like me to do a safety and security work order when the tenant moves out. So you send me the work order, you cap it at 350 or whatever, and it's just do a general safety and security inspection, meaning I'm going to shut off the water if necessary, or at least check for leaks. But I'm going to try to do some things to make sure your property isn't going to flood or catch on fire. I'm going to make sure the windows are locked and that they're capable of locking, that the doors are locked and capable of locking. Make sure all the keys fit in everything. I'm going to check the smoke detectors to see if they're expired, test them to make sure that they work. I'm going to take all these steps, make sure if there's a pool, that it's got a gate that latches properly and that the door from the house into the backyard to the pool has either a security alarm or a chain lock or some other type of lock more than 59 inches high, which is required so that children can't reach it and go out to the backyard and drown in the pool. All these things need to happen no matter what. So if they need to happen no matter what, instead of you paying me to do an inspection, because I know for a fact I need to charge to just to be accountable for my time and not harm my business. I need to charge something in the ballpark of 250. I really want to say 350, but then my brain goes, you know though, Ray, if they could pay you 250, that's pretty reasonable. That's not going to upset homeowners very much if it's a safety and security thing. And because they've sent you to do the inspection, and by default, you're probably the guy that's going to get the work, the value of the extra work you're going to get, maybe that makes up for that extra 100 that you're not charging for the inspection. And while you're inspecting, let's say you need 3 new sets of blinds. Well, while I'm inspecting, I can measure for those blinds. I can measure everything. I can take paint samples. I can have my list ready so that when we do get that work order, we don't need to go make a trip to Home Depot to pick up a bunch of stuff and then take it to the property. We don't need to go to the property, get a paint sample, drive to Home Depot and drive back. If there's things we need to order for the property that aren't going to be available locally, we can order those in advance before we ever go. So there's some efficiency savings. So I think I can take that 350 that it should be and make it 250. 250 would cover the on-the-job time of inspecting, which is about an hour and a half, and the hour that it's going to take to get all of those pictures and everything all put together into a package. It's going to be an itemized estimate. This is what's beautiful too. So this will be part of the process that I'm going to offer. I will do the safety and security thing. If whatever I need to fix, of course, on the spot, I'm going to fix on the spot. So that's above and beyond the $250 fee generally that I'm going to charge to go there. In fact, maybe I'll do some of the work, like for example, smoke detector batteries or whatever. I'm going to keep that price down to keep the homeowner happy. But the point is, as I'm there doing that inspection and getting all these pictures together, I'll fix some stuff. I'll be able to invoice. I'll be able to make my money, account for the trip, account for the time I'm going to use. And then I'm going to use Jobber. And this is why I have the Grow plan on Jobber. A lot of y'all don't like, you either don't like Jobber because it's expensive, or you specifically don't like the Grow plan because it's expensive. Because you say, well, you've got Marcotte and some of these other ones out here that are just $40 a month. Well, yeah, they are. They don't do what Jobber does. I know you think they do because they invoice, you can onboard clients, you can do the basics of what any CRM can do, including there are free CRMs that will do the things you're paying Marcotte for. I have Jobber because Jobber is really custom designed for this type of business. And one of the things that it does is these line item approve or deny. They call it add-ons. So for Jobber, the way they made it is they think like you're given an estimate, it's like replace faucet, and here's the faucet, with the price for the materials. And Jobber's idea was that you have an optional line item to add $50 to the price and upgrade to a new faucet. Well, what I do is I make the whole estimate add-ons basically. So essentially there's a trip fee at the top, and then everything under that trip fee, every item that we're going to work on, they're all optional. They're all add-ons. They all have a price attached. So the property manager can go through my estimate that I send that has a photo of the thing that I'm telling them needs to be fixed attached to every line item so they can see that in fact it is broken, it is damaged, it is missing. And they can approve or deny. So if there's a budget and it's outside of the budget, just don't approve some of the things, or give me a call and just say, hey man, can you do us a solid? Like your estimate says this is going to be $980 and there's only $780 left. Is there any way you could come down? And I might be able to say, yeah, I tell you what, we'll remove this one thing and then I'll only need to reduce the price by $60 and I appreciate your business. So I'll reduce the price by that $60 plus remove that one item. We'll get you in budget. You can always work with these things. But the point is, the service that they would get from me would look like this. Send me a work order that says safety and security inspection. I go there, I make the property safe, I make the property secure. I invoice for that, but while I'm there, I also do a full inspection. It's not going to be on the estimate. I'm not going to say I charged you $250 to do an inspection. It's going to say I charged you X amount of dollars to do a safety and security thing and actually get it safe and secure. And then while I'm there, I do the inspection. So part of that price is the package you receive that's got all of the line items you can approve or deny. Now your property manager, number one, can focus on onboarding new clients, or can focus on getting properties rented out, or can put out whatever fires they need to be putting out. They no longer need to leave their desk, drive halfway across town to a property, do a bad job of inspecting it, and then send me a work order. They don't have to do any of that anymore. All they have to do is just carbon copy the exact same work order every time, safety and security inspection at this address. And then from there, they're done. They end up getting a package from me. Like I said, it's got the pictures, it's got the pricing. They approve or deny whatever they want to approve or deny, sign it, submit it. They don't even need to let me know. I'll get the alert from Jobber that tells me it's approved. I'll convert it to a job. I'll go out there and fix it. My son will fix it. My workers will fix it. If it needs some specialty work, I'll have my drywall guy separately scheduled to go do that. I can set up multiple trips in Jobber. I can assign it to like 4 different people for 4 different trips if that's what I need to do, and manage and grow it all there. But that's the service I'm going to be offering. I think that's, if I'm going to pitch anything, I'm not going to pitch, again, I'm not going to beg for work because I don't need it, but I do like the idea of growing. But if I'm going to pitch anything, I'm going to pitch the idea that I sincerely believe that I can solve a problem that they have, and this is the way to solve it, and that we should at least do a test run on it. What? Tell that puppy, get out! Get out! So that's the plan. And that would be for move-outs and for onboarding new properties. I already went over remodel. I wouldn't be unhappy to move into remodels down the road. Oh, yeah, so here's another one. Definitely not ready to just kick this off right away. But if they're interested, I feel like a 3D walkthrough. This company, by the way, I've checked out their website back then and now. They're not strangers to 3D walkthroughs. They probably have a system set up for that already. But what I would really like to do, and just FYI, so you guys know if you ever want to try to add this or utilize it, there's lots of different providers of cameras and software for this, but one in particular that I was looking into about a year ago, Matterport, Matterport. If you purchased their newest camera, at that time what was their newest camera and were subscribed to their highest level of software, one of the things you could do within their software. So let's say you have a move out, you get all the work done, the place is cleaned up, it's ready, it's rent ready, right? You go do a 3D walkthrough thing with your camera where you set it up, you turn it on, it scans the room, it puts it all together. This thing is so accurate. It uses lasers to measure distance. It is so accurate that one of the things you can do after the fact, so let's say that I did this, let's say I did it 6 months ago on a property that's now occupied. And let's say the tenant puts in a work order and says the blinds in the master bedroom broke, and they don't work anymore. It all fell apart into a million pieces. Now, my company needs to go install new blinds. Well, if I used Matterport, if I created that library of all my homes using Matterport, one of the things I can do, believe it or not, with Matterport, I can go open up that house. I can go to that bedroom and I can measure on my computer. I can get an accurate measurement of the length of those blinds. So if I know that they are white, vinyl, cordless mini blinds, then all I need to do is go in there and measure in the software. Then I can order the blinds. I can have a secretary, office manager, assistant, whatever you want to call it, order those blinds, attach that order to that job, and not even send anybody out there to do that job until the blinds arrive. So instead of sending an employee that I'm paying hourly, or instead of me or my son or any subcontractor having to drive to the property to measure the blinds, drive to Home Depot or elsewhere, find somebody to cut those blinds, stand around and wait 20 minutes for them to finally show up and cut them, and then go to the property and install them. If I use Matterport and I have an entire 3D walkthrough of every house, then I now save every time we work on that house. Doesn't matter what it is. Need a new faucet? I don't need the tenant to send me a picture. I can go to Matterport and I can look at the last move out we did. I can see what faucet's there and I can just get that faucet and already have it on the inventory for the person installing it. And you could do this through the whole house. We need an estimate for new carpet in the living room and the hallway only. Well, guess what? I can use Matterport and have the actual exact square footage, the exact, like down to the quarter inch of the carpet. I will know exactly how much it needs. Information is so valuable.